All right, good afternoon. 1 o'clock. We all are wide awake after lunch. Hopefully, everyone was able to get something to eat, get some coffee, and prepare for this afternoon. So, to kick off this afternoon, we're starting with one of our favorite topics here at DWD, and probably the most requested um, solution that we've had over the past couple of years. Um, ScanForce, which is related to manufacturing and distribution, the scanning of barcodes and understanding where your product is in the warehouse or where it is in the manufacturing process and tracking labor and material and all those wonderful things that we all want to do within our business, especially in the economy we've been in with workers being a premium and finding people to work has been difficult. We're trying to find ways to automate and just become more efficient in the warehouse and in the manufacturing process. And that's where ScanForce really stands strong and has really helped a lot of our clients. So today with us is Brian Berry from ScanForce, and he is going to give us the highlights of everything that ScanForce does in those spaces. So go ahead and take it away, Brian.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm not sure. You gave me the slot right after lunch, so I'm not sure if that's because you think I'll keep everybody awake after refueling, or because you think I'll bore them and everybody will get a good nap.
I mean,
But
it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So
okay, well, let's dive right in, folks. Again, Brian Berry here on the ScanForce side. I'll be your tour guide this afternoon. And anything that's of interest, if you see any little tidbit that sparks your interest, please reach out to whoever you talk to at DVD, excuse me, and ask them about that. And then they can set up a one-on-one with you and and we can go through what your needs are, what you know, any sort of requirements that you may have. And what I'm going to be showing you today is the full larger system, the whole ScanForce ecosystem, if you will. But I'd like you to bear in mind that there are parts and pieces that can be broken off, and you can do small little segments. So even though I'm showing you a very large system that has a lot of bells and whistles, don't think that you have to start with all of that. We can very easily work in a phased approach. You can, we always say we're big fans of learning to crawl before we walk, before we run. It's also very easy to upgrade in the ScanForce ecosystem. So if you do decide to start very small with a small standalone piece or with a small version or edition of our warehouse management barcoding system, you can very easily grow into the others, and you never lose the value of your initial purchase. So if you decide to acquire one small component of ours and then you want to add on to it, we just apply those dollars to the larger purchase. So you never lose the value of that purchase going forward. Okay. All right. So let me jump right in and tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So first of all, what is ScanForce? At our core, what we at ScanForce do is we extend Sage inventory functions out into the warehouse. Think about what you do today. Think about your normal processes. Pardon me. You're probably doing a lot of stuff on paper. Okay, so a PO receipt comes in and you have someone that scribbles down all the pieces and parts and all the quantities and the items that come in and anything that's left over or a back order, something like that. That piece of paper then eventually has to shuffle its way into the office, and someone sits down and keys it into a batch in Sage, there's that receiving application, and then process the batch and that sort of thing. There's a lot of time lag there. Okay, and for a lot of you, whether you're a distributor or a manufacturer, if you're a distributor, you may be waiting on that shipment to come in because you got sales orders that can't go out the door until they're complete. Or if you're a manufacturer, you may be holding up a whole production line because you're waiting on raw materials to come in. Well, if the time is holding you up because of all the paperwork that has to flow back and forth between someone writing it down at the dock door and it actually becoming live inventory in Sage, that's a real tangible time that you're missing out of getting stuff out the door or producing finished goods. Well, because we're able to extend Sage inventory functions like receiving out onto the shop floor to be used with a handheld barcode scanner that connects via Wi-Fi in real time back into Sage, rather than writing things down on paper, they can simply look at a screen and say, I'm supposed to receive 20 of these. Are there 20 here? Yes. Boom, that's instantly back in Sage. You can process that, or we can even auto post it and make it real time. And we cut out that time lag completely. So when you think about what we do, think about speeding up all of your processes that touch inventory and hopefully making them a lot more accurate and efficient along the way. Okay. So real quickly, we've been around in this world for about 20 years. We grew out of the Sage 100 world. We've always been a Sage 100 vendor from our very inception. We have over 800 sites and over 8,000 users banging away on our software all day, every day. So it's a very mature product. It's very stable. And some of the things that we do that are a bit unique, we can actually allow you to work in either a connected or a disconnected environment. That's that fourth bullet point down there. And it's worth mentioning a little bit further, because what that disconnected environment means is I have people all the time say, Brian, my Wi-Fi isn't that great. Do I need to invest a lot of money in my warehouse technology and in upgrading my Wi-Fi to make your solution work? And the answer is no, not necessarily. You don't need to do that, because we only really need to connect to Sage at the beginning and the end. In fact, we have some clients, I had talked to someone not too long ago, they have a 7-acre yard in which they lay down material. They receive big, bulky things. And so they'll start in the shipping office and they'll sync up and they'll say, I'm going to receive PO number 12345. Then they'll go out, acres away from the place where there's no Wi-Fi coverage, but the information is on their handheld. They, like the handheld that you see here, they can go ahead and receive everything that they need to, and then when they reacquire the Wi-Fi signal, we'll sync everything back up. So again, it works in a real-time connected environment and also in a disconnected environment. The other big thing there is if you happen to drop the connection for any reason, if your Wi-Fi network goes down, power loss, anything like that, you don't lose anything because it's all stored there on the handheld. Again, as soon as we reacquire the Wi-Fi connection, boom, we sync right back up. Okay, so we are directly communicating with Sage. We have an import utility that constantly monitors Sage, and as the handhelds say, I need access and I want to receive against PO 12345, we go through the Wi-Fi, through our import utility into Sage, we grab the information about the line items and quantities that are on that PO, take it to the handheld, and it goes right back. So we're not a repository of information. Your information of your inventory is still going to stay in Sage. What we're doing is updating that information in real time. Okay? And we also have a multi-bin solution, which we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about today. You probably have heard at least some mention of multi-bin in the Sage world. Okay? I'm going to put a pin in that one until we get to that screen, but move on now. So real quickly, let me talk a little bit about the architecture of our system, just so you kind of have a warm fuzzy about who we are and what we do. We designed it from the ground up. We didn't bolt this thing together. It was built on an application development tool. It runs on Android devices. It runs on iOS, Apple devices. It can also run on a Windows PC. So we have quite often, if you have an existing PC in your warehouse, maybe at the end of a production line or a packing station or something like that, you can utilize that existing device without having to purchase another specific handheld device to work. It's very powerful. It's very stable. In fact, the platform that we are built on was used to build the 1,000-unit application that this Black Horse carries, a big trucking company. They have over 1,000 trucks crisscrossing the country all day, every day that utilize the same technology that we do. Even FedEx, they built an application that's used in all their warehouse and sorting facilities on the same platform. So you're not going to max out us from a technology standpoint. We'll certainly be able to handle whatever the throughput is that you have. Now, speed. We talked about throughput. So just how fast is this? The most frustrating thing in the world, you're sitting there on your phone and you're trying to download concert tickets or sporting event tickets or movie tickets or anything like that, and you've got that spinning dial in the middle of the screen. Everybody hates that, right? You feel like you age 100 years for every second that thing spins. Well, our application is lightning fast, and we actually proved it. This was something we did several years ago. We called it the Million Record Challenge. We basically loaded up 1,000,000 records and then on the handheld said, go find one little piece of data. It did so, and it returned it, as you see there, in less than 0.03 seconds. So lightning fast. It's designed to be scalable, lots of users, and it's designed to be very quick and access your information in Sage, because we don't want your users standing around and waiting for the system. That just goes counter to everything we do, because we're all about efficiency and timeliness in the warehouse. Okay? So everybody has the obligatory logo screen. We have one as well. These are just some of the partners that operate in the Sage world that you might be utilizing. Okay? One that I will go ahead and mention is Starship. There's probably some people on the call today that are Starship users. You use it for shipping out Sage 100 packages. This is something that you're going to get a scoop on, okay? You're one of the first people to ever hear about this, because we haven't officially announced it, but we are going to, in the very near term, just weeks away, announce a formal partnership with Starship. Now, in the past, we've always shared information back and forth through Sage, because we'll develop package information on the handhelds about shipments and put it in shipping data entry. Starship takes it from there and then says, oh, I have a package of this size and weight. I need to print a label. What we're going to do now, instead of having that dotted line connecting us through shipping data entry, we'll have a direct connection to Starship. So on the back end of a picking shipping application in ScanForce, you'll be able to execute the Starship shipping functions, identify the packages, the weights, the dimensions, all that jazz, and print your labels directly from our handheld, which means, again, more efficiency. Your people don't have to go to a PC and sign into another system to be able to do all that. So just one more bell and whistle that we're adding to the application. Okay, so why would someone want to do this? Let's just talk through a few of the scenarios. Number one, your inventory is a lot more expensive today than it was a couple of years ago. Okay, it's just something in this post-COVID world, even though I'm not sure we're completely post-COVID, but in the world that we live in with supply chain being what it is, things just cost more. Everything. You go to the grocery store and it costs $200, and that's just, it seems crazy that prices of everything is out of control. I'm sure you're experiencing this on your raw materials as well. Okay, well, if you ship the wrong thing, it's just multiplied the expense. Okay, shipping the wrong thing. And another thing is, the safety stock. I talk to people all the time that say, because we do everything on paper and we're not really sure, it's not overly accurate, we have to carry more raw material in terms of like a safety stock type quantity than we would like to, just because I don't trust the number that's in Sage. It may say there's 1,000 there, but I don't trust that number. So I have to keep extra material on hand. Well, that's carrying costs. And now that's actually just driven up more by the cost of raw materials that we're talking about. So by just organically using a barcoding system like ScanForce, you can expect a lot of increase in accuracy. So hopefully you can reduce the carrying cost of that safety stock. We want you to trust the number that's in Sage. We're going to make sure you do by all the validations and checks and balances that we have on the handhelds that make sure that are the ones that populate those inventory numbers into Sage. So we want things to happen in a much more timely manner. We talked about that already with trying to reduce paper and make things more instantaneous. We want accuracy to go up. You'll hear me say accuracy, efficiency, timeliness over and over and over again. These are the hallmarks of everything that we do, okay? Also, labeling, okay? Labeling is huge. We make it very simple. In the back of a receiving screen, when you say, here's my item code, yes, there's 20 on this shipment. The next screen is a label screen. Would you like to print a label for this? Yes. Do you want one label or 20 labels? Boom. They spit out, you pop them on there. Now you can take advantage of scanning a barcode every time you touch that item downstream, and every process that you do with that raw material or that finished good will be that much more efficient as we go. Okay? So the bottom line here is adding barcode scanning to your system will save you both time and money. Now, real quick, I'm going to run through some of the applications that we have here at a high level, then we'll drill down and look at them in a little more detail as we go. The first, our warehouse automation system. This is what most people think of when they hear the name ScanForce. They think about barcoded inventory control, doing shipping and receiving and all the inventory transfers, issues, receipts, things like that, and just being a lot more efficient in everything you do in the warehouse. That's perfect. We want you to think that because those are all things that are true. It's a hallmark to who we are and what we do. But we're also a lot more than that. We have a mobile sales application, okay? So that will allow you to sort of extend Sage out to where your customers are. And I'm going to show you some screens on that here in just a moment, okay? So as to who would use it, on the warehousing side, anybody in distribution, obviously there's a big impact there. Using barcodes to track items, it's a lot more efficient and a lot more accurate. Now, whether you're doing just light assembly, like putting a couple things together, or whether you're a full-blown manufacturer and you're converting raw material inventory and component goods into finished goods, we can handle all of that because we have the modules, like anything from the older work order to a bill of materials to the newer production management, all the way up to version the 2022's production management. So we have all of that in-house ready to go. Now on the mobile sales side, think about empowering your salespeople. What is Sage to you? Sage is the repository of everything that you know and everything that you do. Every dollar that you make, every dollar you spend, every stick of every inventory that you have, it's all in Sage. With our mobile sales, you can extend that database, that repository of knowledge out with your people, empower them to sit in front of your customer and say, yes, I have 25 of those in stock. I can get them to you tomorrow. Or, you know what? I don't have any in my warehouse, but I've got some in Cleveland or wherever else your other warehouse is. I can have them here next week. Okay, that's real power. That's putting power in the hands of your people so that they can give timely and perhaps most importantly, accurate information to your customers. Whether you have a counter sales and you want to be able to walk around with your end user and say, I want one of those and two of those, or whether you're on a trade show floor, you can actually enter transactions live while you're standing there with your customer or sitting across from their desk in their office. And before you even get up to shake hands to say, thank you, Mr. Customer, for your order, you can hit a button and that order can be printing out in the warehouse and someone can start picking it before you ever even get to the parking lot to get back in your car. So it's really powerful information that the mobile sales gives you. And these are what some of the screens look like. Now, I won't run through a full demo. Oops, actually, it looks like I won't run through any demo because that just jumped really fast. I'm sorry about that. Let me back up for just a quick second. I didn't know that those were on a timer. So the main screen here gives you access to information about the client. You can look up information about them. You can also enter quotes, sales orders, things of that nature. And again, while you're sitting there with the client, you can capture signatures, you can email receipts to them while you're sitting there in their office talking to them, or again, on a show floor, or if you have counter sales, it can be used there. Think about it from a counter sales perspective. You're not tied to the computer. You can have a tablet like an iPad running this application and get out and walk around with your client while they say, I want one of those and two of those, okay? And then the ability to capture the signatures right there, email them out. The customers love it because it's more accurate and it's more timely. The same things that you love about accuracy and timeliness in your inventory, your customers will appreciate that in their own office as well. Okay. All right, so let's jump in now and talk a little bit more about the barcoded inventory control stuff that we do with the warehouse management system. That's the WMS or warehouse management system that you've heard us talking about here. So we have three different editions or versions: fundamentals, advanced, and premium. Don't get overly excited about the prices you see on the screen because that's the price of the bundle itself. But then there's implementation, and of course there's a support side of it, like a yearly support, and there could be hardware tacked onto that as well. But this will give you some idea of a starting point. Now, the fundamentals version has everything that you need to run any given basic warehouse: the ability to receive POs, ship sales orders, do a physical count, do transfers between locations, do issues, receipts, things of that nature. Even with issues there, let's say you have a damaged item, okay? So the warehouse identifies that something is damaged. How do you handle that today? It's probably pretty cumbersome. Somebody probably has to write something down or tell somebody, and they have to remember it, and they go in, they do an inventory adjustment, save, something like that. We can make it a lot simpler. They simply go and select issues off the main menu, and they would say, here's the item. They can scan the barcode if it's labeled. They can get another quantity. And then there's a reason code that drops down. Why am I issuing these? It could be damaged. Maybe you're issuing a sample out to a customer or salesperson. Maybe you lost a piece of inventory. That kind of stuff happens. But when they select that reason code, there's actually a link to an expense account in the general ledger. So the value of that item is being taken care of on the accounting side while we're actually removing the count from the inventory side. So it happens simultaneously. Now, the user in the warehouse, they have no idea what's happening on the GL. All they know is I'm saying it was damaged. And then the system takes over and the magic happens and it writes it off to the correct expense account. Okay. So this fundamentals version, like I said, for 4,500 bucks, it handles all the basic transaction that every warehouse comes into contact with. Okay. Now, the reason someone might move up from fundamentals to advanced is we're going to add some more bells and whistles. We're going to tweak some processes to gain potentially some more efficiencies. So if your warehouse is a little larger, you have a little bit more complex operation, maybe this makes sense. Auto post is a big one. I touched on this earlier. What auto post does, when you issue a receipt, okay, you're doing a receipt of goods, and you say, I received 20 of these and 10 of those and 5 of these. That flows into a batch in Sage, and from there, someone goes and processes it through your normal Sage batch processing procedures. Auto post bypasses all that. As soon as it goes into the batch, bam, we automatically post it. It's live in your inventory right then and there. So if you need to use it for production, or if a sales order is waiting for it to ship out, it's live instantly as soon as the physical action happens in the warehouse. We don't have to wait for Sage, okay? The other cool thing about AutoPost is we actually give you a list of numerous types of transactions, including manufacturing completion steps, and you tell the system which ones you want to AutoPost and which ones that you'd rather flow into a batch as per normal and have a second set of eyes look at them, okay? So the staging of orders, okay? If you're of the type of operation where you may have things coming out of manufacturing, or you're waiting for material to come in from distributors, and you're going to stage them. You want to pull everything that's available at that moment and put it in a spot in the warehouse designated for this order. It may take a week before you get everything together, but you'll have it in one place, and then when you're ready, you can ship it out. Well, that's what this two-step pick and pack operation is. Now, in fundamentals, we allow you to do sales order shipping, but that's typically you have a packing list. I go into the racks, I pull the 5 line items, for instance, that I need, and I put them in a box or put it on a pallet, shrink wrap it, apply the labels, and out the door it goes, okay? With the picking and packing, we split that into 2 steps. One person can pick the items, and then they stage it or take it to a packing station, and then someone else comes behind them, and they're the ones that actually put it together, put it in a box, put it in a pallet, and do the packaging. So typically we call this staging, but a lot of people do it just because they have numerous people packing, numerous people picking, and then other different people that are doing the actual packaging step, okay? So that 2-step process is included in advanced. This next one, directed picking. I call this the crown jewel of the whole WMS. It's my favorite component. What directed picking does, imagine if in your racking system you have like an aisle A, aisle B, aisle C, aisle D type layout, okay? And your sales order prints out, and there's 10 line items on there, okay? So I could go to aisle A and get line item number 1, and then go over to aisle C and get line item number 2, and then when I look at line item number 3, I say, oh, wait, that's in the rack right beside the first one over there on aisle A. Think about all the wasted footsteps, okay? Add up every transaction, every day, every week, every month, times the number of employees you have, and think about the wasted footfalls that you have, okay? That's a real tangible dollar amount that you're paying for in labor costs, okay? Directed picking attacks that problem. What directed picking does is it uses the locations that are set up for every item, runs it through a little algorithm, and it says, okay, instead of picking this and off the sales order line 1, line 2, line 3, let's pick it in order of efficiency. Let's go to aisle A, and maybe there's 3 things on aisle A that we can get while we're there. Then we'll loop around to aisle C and get what's there because there was nothing on aisle B. Then we'll loop around to aisle D. The point is, it's building a serpentine path for your workers to walk the warehouse to save those wasted footsteps, okay? I talk to people all day, every day that complain that they can't get enough people to come to work. They have shorthanded, they have signs out, they may have raised the hourly wage 3, 4, 5 times. They just can't get enough people off the couch to come to work and pick orders. Okay? Directed picking can help you do more with less people because it cuts out a lot of the fluff, it cuts out a lot of the waste, and it will save you money in labor for real. That's why I call directed picking the crown jewel of the whole system. Okay? Now, in addition to that, we have some dashboards. There's some really cool reports. Some of the reports are simply from a management perspective. I look at it and I say, how many sales orders need to be picked? How many are actively be picked right now? How many are ready to be packaged? How many have we shipped today? And it displays it on a grid for you. You can see bar graphs and charts and pie charts and all this kind of cool stuff. It lays it out for you. So from a management perspective, at a glance, you can see exactly where a bottleneck is and marshal resources to attack that. Okay? Another thing that's kind of cool is we have some reports in the system that actually track metrics of employee productivity. Which employees have shipped the most orders? Which have shipped the most line items? Which have shipped the most total quantity? We even have some customers that have a TV mounted up on the wall above the shipping office, and they display that screen in real time. So everybody in the warehouse knows exactly where they stand compared to everybody else. I call it the Big Brother board. So Big Brother's always watching. So that's something you certainly can do if you wish. Okay. Another thing that we could do with advanced is batch management. You know, Sage is a batch-based system. Everybody knows that. And at some point in time, you fought the batches. Well, we augment what Sage does from a batch perspective. We give the ability to move things much easier between batches. We give you the ability on the handheld, when you're done with a transaction, to actually select which batch it goes into. You may want one batch per person. You may want one batch per shift or per day or something of that nature. You can set up different batches, and the users will direct their transaction to the appropriate batch. So again, we're just augmenting what Sage allows you to do normally and improving upon it. Okay? And then if we go to the top shelf, that's our premium package. What premium really is, if you take all the functionality that's in fundamentals, add on all the add-on features we just talked about in advance, and bundle that with our multi-bin advanced solution, that is premium. So when you add multi-bin on top of advanced, you get premium. And some of the big kickers here are this, in multi-bin advanced are the auto allocations. When you hear allocation, think reservation, okay? So when you enter a sales order and it's gonna take 15 items, do you want to go ahead and create a reservation for 15 items right now, even though that order may not ship for a month? Okay, you can, or you may not want to because of the time lag. If you have another order that comes in the very next day for 15 and it's a next day shipment, you may want to wait and let that second order take the material so you can ship it out on time, and then you've got 4 weeks to figure out how to replace the inventory for the first order. It really just depends on how you want to set up and run your business. We give you these business rules that allow you to customize the way the system creates reservations. Do you want to work in a FIFO environment? We can do that. Do you want to work in an environment where we allocate material based on the most efficient picking method? We can do that too. Some people will say, if I've got one bin that's got 20 and another bin that's got 100 items in it, okay? If I get an order for 50, where do you want to go? You want me to take you to the one with 20 and wipe it out and then go get the rest in the other location? We can do that, or we can just direct you to the one that has enough to get it in one pick so that we keep the process flowing as fast as possible. Okay, so the point is, with auto allocations, we give you a tremendous amount of power to customize the way the system is going to look and act and respond based on your environment. Okay, and then in that situation where you had the 20 and the 100, you can set minimum and max in these bins. So if you relieve out of the 20 bin, it's going to eclipse the minimum value, so a replenishment report can be run that says, go to an overstock location and pull, say 100 and get me up to my max in that bin, so you can replenish them. So the point here is people don't have to guess anymore about where stuff is, where they should pull it, and how they're going to replenish those picking bins. The system does the thinking for them and allows them to be more efficient and faster and more accurate. Okay. Now, part of my job whenever you talk to whoever you deal with at DWD, when you say, I want to talk to the barcoding guy, okay, they'll get you on the phone with me. I talk you through all of these options and the way that you're doing business, okay, and the way that you want your warehouse to work, and we figure out which one of these makes sense for you. And what we may come up with, we say, you know what, phase one, fundamentals meets all of our needs. Let's learn to crawl before we walk, before we run. And then you call me back in 6 months or 2 years and you say, you know what, I want that multi-bin stuff that you talked to me about way back when during that webinar, okay? So we can go upgrade you from fundamentals to premium. All you do is pay the difference between the two. Again, you never lose the value of your initial purchase with ScanForce, okay? All right, so let's drill down a little bit more, talk about multi-bin since we've already broached that subject. So what multi-bin does is allow you to, the first thing I'll say that it does is allow you to see where things are. You know, when you go into an inventory or item inquiry in Sage, it says you've got 1,000 pieces. Well, that's great, but where? All it tells me is it's under my roof. That's all I know. But multi-bin will actually say this one item in this one warehouse exists in all of these places, okay? And you can see the on-hand quantity in each of them. I could even see that I've got 12 of them sitting in a sales order staging location waiting to be shipped out. Or what would also show here is if I had another 1,000 units that had just come in off of a receipt, it would say PO receiving 1,000 units, so I would know that, okay? Now, you can't really see that in Sage, but with multi-bin, we give you that extra visibility, okay? And we can extend it even one step further now with what we call license plating and what most people refer to as pallet tracking. Now, with pallet tracking, if you think about what a pallet is really essentially just a temporary location where we store things, okay? This location, A1A, it's going to be here today, tomorrow, and next week. But pallet number 32, it may only be here for a day or two, and then we're going to ship it out, okay? So I can actually, if this location is big enough to accept it, I could potentially have multiple pallets of this material sitting in that location. And now I can identify it at the pallet level. I can move a whole pallet to production, or I can ship a whole pallet out if I want to. I don't have to touch all 50 things on it. I just scan the license plate barcode on the outside of the pallet, and Sage knows everything in there gets moved at the same time, okay? So please talk to me about pallets. If pallets are important to you in your operation, we need to have a conversation and talk more about that, okay? Another aspect of multi-bin is this directed put away. Directed put away will actually, when you receive something, it will tell the user, hey, the primary location for this item is A1A, but if you get there and it's full, these are some other locations that already have it. Go put it there instead of just sticking it somewhere else, okay? So go put it with light items. That's what directed put away does for you, okay? We also have directed picking. So on the sales order side, it will say, you know, if you need exactly 250, hey, why not go to this location? There's 250 there. Take all of them and wipe it out, rather than going and having to pull out of here and leaving 250 sitting there. So directed picking will actually tell the person exactly where to go. That's that serpentine path that we talked about before. It's all part of the same process, okay? So some other things that we can do, we mentioned printing labels, and labels are huge for us because we are at our core a barcoding system. What a lot of people are doing nowadays is printing this two-dimensional label. You know, like when you go to a restaurant, you scan it with your phone and pull up a menu. Everybody hates that because you have to scroll through 100 screens, but the process is the same. The cool thing about it from a warehousing perspective is we can encode both the item code in Sage and a lot number or serial number here. So now, every time you scan that barcode with our handheld, we're going to populate multiple fields on our application. We talked about being more accurate and more efficient and more timely. Well, that checks all three boxes in a big way, okay? Some other things that we do is manufacturing. So whether it's work order or bill of materials or production management, we have a handheld module that dovetails into what you're doing in Sage. So if you're doing bill of material completions, whether you're doing the backflush method or the prompt for components, and if you don't know what those are, we need to talk. We can explain those, we can help. So whether you're doing it either way, we can handle it by component or backflush. And with production management, we can likewise do material issues, we can do work ticket completions, And we have a couple of options for entering labor right here on the handheld. So you don't have to go somewhere else to enter labor. They just do it while they're walking across the floor to go pull raw material. They can say, start the clock, okay? Let me show you what that looks like. So from the menu, I can say time clock. I identify who I am and the work ticket number that I'm working on. These are grayed out. It's just current date and time. You hit the big green clock in button, okay? Then procedurally, what most people would do is they would go into this work ticket material issue. By the way, this is just production management that I'm focusing on right now, folks, okay? So then you would go into material issue and you identify all the component raw materials and how much you were pulling out of stock. And if, again, you have lots and serials, scan the barcode and we automatically track which lot number. And now you have full traceability all the way to the finished good of the lot or serial numbers that were consumed during manufacturing. The next step is you would go into a completion and you would tell it how many you're making. It says, you know, you're supposed to make 5. You haven't made any yet. So go ahead and make all 5 of those, identify your scrap. And at the last, you would go back in a time clock. And instead of the big green button to clock in, there's a big red button that allows you to clock out. And now that labor transaction is going to flow into our management console. Okay, this is just like the picture of the top half of the screen off the PC. What this is showing on our management console, I've gone into the labor tracking tab. These are all labor transactions. These are all work tickets that you see down here. I've got a date and time stamp. I know the user. This is just the initials of the user. If you want to see the full name, we can pull that in too. Okay, but this tells me the item code that I'm making, the physical device, the piece of hardware I'm working on, the employee who's doing it, the transaction type. And here it's showing me the start time and stop time of every labor transaction. All of my work tickets are lined up here. We bring all the labors here and aggregate them because there's always that one person that says, hey boss, I forgot to clock out when I went to lunch. Can you go in and change that for me? Okay, so I'm looking down here and I'm seeing this one took 12 minutes, 5 minutes, hour and a half. Here's my guy. This is my guy that forgot to clock out, he went to lunch. Every company has one of those guys, okay? So when that happens, all you have to do is come here, double click there, and it will allow you to enter the correct time, okay? And then when you're ready, you can come over here and select individual transactions, or if you click this one, it will select everything that's available and you can submit them back to Sage, and that's when it writes the labor transaction back to the work ticket, okay? If you've ever had to do that where you go in and out of labor work ticket labor transactions to update that information in Sage, it's tedious, it's arduous, it's time consuming, it's frustrating. Wouldn't it be nice to have them all laid out here in one page where you can do everything you need to do, massage the data, and then submit them in mass? And you'll notice all the ones that don't have a finish time or duration time are highlighted in yellow. So from a management perspective, I look at this and I say, you know what? These are 1, 2, 3, 4 jobs that are active on machines in the shop right now. I can see that at a glance, okay? So that's just a little bit about labor tracking. Now, I want to talk about one other thing that we can do in production management. And I apologize for those of you that are just in distribution, but this is too important to skip. This is called make to order. If you have items that you need to create work tickets for that don't exist on the shelf, okay, whether you're out of stock or it's just a make to order item that you do you always make to order instead of make to stock, we need to talk about make to order. What this does is it automates the creation of the work ticket. It will create the work ticket for you. It's one whole step you get to skip in the process. And here's how it works. The first thing is we'll identify the item that we're making, as a make to order item as the procurement method. The next thing is we have all these in the options within the ScanForce setup. You have this integration method. And it would give you options. Obviously, to disable it is one, but you wouldn't do that. That's just basically turning it off. Your options here are automatic, prompt, and manual. Manual means we're going to give you a button on a sales order. So when you're doing sales order entry, you can hit a button and have it create the work ticket on demand. Or prompt is when you're done with the sales order entry, it will scan the system, and if it finds any make to order items, it will pop up a message, would you like to create a work ticket now, yes or no? And then automatic is exactly what you think it is. It just creates it automatically without any input from me, okay? Now, some companies, the same person that does the order entry is the person that handles the work ticket manufacturing part. In other companies, it's 2 different people. Salespeople do sales orders, and folks in the warehouse do the manufacturing. This checkbox right over here tells us If it's the same person that's handling both sides of the equation, we check this, and then as soon as I enter the sales order, instantly it pops up my work ticket on the screen so I can go in there and look at it and make changes. Okay? And it would look something like this. I'm in the middle of a sales order. Here's that button that I talked about, sort of a magic wand, if you will. And the hover text you can see says create work ticket. Or this is what the prompt would look like. It would say, do you want to create a work ticket, yes or no? Automatic, I can't show you because it just automatically happens. But it would create the work ticket. It can pop it up if we check the checkbox. You can go in there. You can make any changes if you have some customization that you need to make on anyone. You can handle that. Okay? So that's make to order. Make to order is a companion piece to production management. It can be purchased with or separately. Okay? So if you're into production management, let's talk. So in addition to which version of the warehouse management system, do you need fundamentals, advanced, or premium? Do you need labeling? Do you need a manufacturing piece? We have over 40 other enhancements that would allow you to customize the system and make it work more efficiently in your environment. Things like wave receiving. Let's say you've entered purchase orders against one vendor, and then they all show up, and you've got 10 POs that you need to receive in one shipment. Well, what if you ordered the same item on all 10 POs? If it's a real common item, that's happened sometimes. Well, the traditional way is you receive one PO at a time, and you go and you put the line item from the first order away, and then the second one and the third one, and you end up going back to that same location and putting the same item away 10 different times. Wave receiving allows you to group them together and say, you know what, I see the same item 10 times on 10 POs. Let's go put it away one time and save ourselves 9 trips, okay? Again, trying to build in efficiencies. Or using the RMA module in Sage. If you are, we have a corresponding module in the handheld that allows you to check in the parts and make sure it matches what you entered in the RMA. Container receipt management is one of the newer things we've added to the system. If you're getting containers on a regular basis, if it's coming from overseas, coming from China. If it's coming from China, it's probably FOB shipping point. Okay, so as soon as it leaves over there, you own it. Okay, it's on the boat, you don't have it, but you own it. So what we allow you to do is go into Sage and pre-receive those items into a virtual on the water or in transit type warehouse. So now you have great visibility. Everybody can see that that's due in. And then when the steel box shows up on your dock, you go into container receiving, and you don't need to quote unquote receive it again. We've already done that. All we have to do is just validate that what's inside the container is correct. We make adjustments. And then when they hit the button to say they're done, behind the scenes, transparent to the user, we just execute a transfer from warehouses and move it from the in-transit warehouse into your 000 warehouse, for instance. Okay? So that's container receipt management. And we have some similar processes in the shipping world. So we talked about wave receiving, grouping POs together to receive at one time. What about grouping sales orders? You're trying to build a load to go to one customer. Maybe you have a job site you're trying to deliver to. You're trying to group sales orders. Or maybe you have a north, south, east, and west truck, and you're trying to group all the orders to load the north truck. Wave picking allows you to group them together. You can pick them all together, stage them together, and ship them together much more efficiently. Okay? Picking to pallet is kind of cool. When you go to the grocery store, if you buy bread and you buy canned goods, which one do you want to put on the bottom of the bag? Probably the canned goods. That's what pick to pallet does. It tells people how to build a pallet efficiently so you don't end up with the bread on the bottom and the canned goods on top of it. And then we talked about license plating. License plating is an extension of multi-bin. It allows us to track things at the pallet level and consume them or move them or ship them complete with one barcode scan. Okay? So again, we have over 40 of those enhancements that we can use to tweak the process to make everything more efficient for you. And if none of those work, we always have the ability to do custom programming. We do this occasionally. It's not a big part of what we do, but when it's required, we're happy to do it. Things like the 2D barcodes, putting your item codes and lot numbers in there, things of that nature, okay? The bottom line here is ScanForce is designed to be very easy to use. The screen layout is very simple. Here I'm doing a put away. I've just received these items, and it tells me C1B. That's the shelf you need to go put them on. And if you get there and it's full, I can hit the flashlight and it will say, all right, here's some other locations where you have similar items you can put them. We don't ever want the customer or the end user to think about what they have to do next in the system. The screens will follow the normal flow of activity, the things that they normally do in their job all day, every day. Again, we've been doing this for 20 years. We've got 8,000 Sage 100 users banging away on it every day, and they're following the same progression of screens. Okay, it's designed to be fast. It's designed to be intuitive. And the screens are very simple. They're not cluttered up. 9 times out of 10, or actually even more than that, we only ask you for one piece of data on each screen. And it's always right at the top in the light gray box like this. What location are you moving this to? Okay. And the next screen, what's the quantity that you're moving? It's very intuitive the way it steps you through the process. Okay. Because we don't want your people to have to worry about remembering the next thing. The screen will just walk them through the process. And once you learn one function in ScanForce, it's extremely easy to pick up the next function because they're all designed very similarly. Okay? And folks, that is the end of my presentation. I hope you have some questions for me. Again, if anything here sparked any interest, talk to your consultant, whoever you deal with there on the DWD side. They will get in touch with me, and we will have a one-on-one conversation, and you can tell me all the problems in your warehouse, and I will tell you all the ways that we can try to fix them. Okay? So, Chris, do we have any questions that have come in while I've been yammering on here?
Impressive, Brian.
Thank you.
But I know over the years, you have a special ability to cover a lot and to say a lot of great things, so not shocking. What is the typical implementation time?
Okay, that's a really good question. So normally from whenever you start the project, we generally run sort of 8 to 12 weeks, sort of 2 to 3 months is kind of normal. And that really varies because, as you saw, there's a lot of breadth to the offering, and nobody uses it exactly the same way. So if you have multi-bin and manufacturing and wave picking and RMA and so all this other stuff, that implementation is going to take a little longer. If you have fundamentals and you don't want multi-bin and you're not a manufacturer, then your project's going to be a little shorter because there's just less stuff to do, less stuff to set up, less stuff to train on. But sort of count on sort of 2 to 3 months is sort of a round number, okay?
Okay. One that I know it comes up when you and I talk, or when I talk to clients sometimes is, people are ready for different pieces at different times. So can say the production management integration on the manufacturing side be standalone, or does it require us to buy the full?
Yeah, that's good. So the manufacturing piece, like production management, can be one of those standalone pieces. So you don't need the full warehouse management, all the implementation stuff. In fact, just yesterday, I had a customer that ordered just production management and labeling. So all they're going to do is issue materials out, track labor, and do completions so they identify finished goods. All those transactions flow into Sage so we update the inventory, but they're also going to use labeling so they can label their finished goods so they can scan them on the way out, and because their customer had a need of scanning them when they come into them. So yeah, quite a few things here can be standalone. The mobile sales we talked about, standalone. Production management can be standalone. The make to order, where we generate the work tickets automatically, that can be standalone, or it can be bundled with production management. Labeling can be standalone. That's something a lot of people don't even know. So if you just have a need to do labeling in your warehouse, you can purchase just our labeling module by itself. Even if you don't need to scan barcodes, but your customers do, we can do that. So there's quite a few things that can be standalone. So any question that you have, ask it, and we'll let you know if it's something that you can start small on.
Okay. And that would be the questions that I have. Just want to thank you for your time and all the great information again.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And everyone, we have a 10-minute break here before the next speaker starts. So here at 2 o'clock, we've got the Sage AP automation workflow that they're going to demonstrate and talk about. So 2 o'clock. So again, thanks, Brian. Thanks for the presentation. And if anyone has any questions, reach out to whoever you work with, myself, and we'll start that process of talking about your needs, and then we'll bring in Brian as we go along. So
Excellent.
thank you,
Thanks for the
Brian.
time. Bye, everyone.
Yep.